Hey, this is Red Pole Q here with Kane Vast, our man in China.
Currently in better China.
He's in Taiwan with me on a visa run, and I thought I'd take a moment to have him sit down with me and ask him a little bit more about his article he wrote on Asian Dating Monthly about what he likes about Chinese girls. 6 things that keep me from coming back to Chinese girls. Probably it'll be 7 or 8 by the time we're done with this article, but for now we've got 6. So the first one that you mention is you say that they're really feminine. The Chinese women are really feminine and sweet. So what do you mean by that?
So sweet, I mean their behavior, feminine in general, their bodies and ideas about themselves. So most Chinese girls aren't going to like burp or fart or do any of these gross things that guys would typically do, or some Western women, right? Now,
yeah, I hate that stuff. I think it's really gross. And then some women, they think it's just about closeness. Like, well, I don't want to be that close.
Exactly. So Chinese women being feminine, part of it is how they behave in general. So the way they speak, unless you make them angry, they're usually quite feminine. They stop being feminine if you piss them off, so avoid doing that. I've done that a lot, and it doesn't really help.
All right, we'll talk about that another time. Let's stick with the rainbows.
So, in terms of just how you touch them, like if you hug them or you want to like get them to walk somewhere with you, whatever, usually quite feminine. There's no kind of push and shove with them at all, which is a really weird thing to talk about. But anyway.
So you mean in the sense that like they're willing to follow your lead, or what do you mean exactly?
I more mean if you like pull their hair or you're physically affectionate with them.
Okay, is that physical affection? Anyway, alright, sure, go ahead.
I don't mean pulling their hair in an anger, I mean in like an affectionate kind of sexual way.
Oh, I see, okay.
Yeah, so they respond very well to this. Basically what I'm saying is the whole yin-yang thing, where if you're yang, kind of dominant, they're very yin, which is kind of feminine.
Right, so in traditional, I don't know, Taoism, I guess, that's from Taoism, yin and yang. Yin is feminine, it's dark.
Yin is white.
Yin is white, that's feminine?
Uh-huh.
Okay, and then yang is masculine and dark.
Yeah.
And does that play a lot of strong? Okay, so okay, great. So what about so the next point you make is you say that Chinese women are characterized by strong gender roles. So can you elaborate on what you mean by that? Chinese girls really fit into some kind of feminine female gender role in a way that maybe women from the West don't?
So Chinese women have a pretty strong idea of what's expected of them as Chinese women. Now there is some like vague amounts of feminism, or I'm a woman, we should be equal, coming through the American TV shows and stuff, but not very much. In general, Chinese women understand very clearly what the deal is and how to exist as a Chinese woman. So they know that when they get married, they have to spit out the kids, obviously, and then they will have pretty much complete power over the household, and they'll control their husband's money, and just in general play out their idea of what a woman should be. Now, part of that also is pretending that the man has some power or is the leader of the household by giving him face in public. And the other part of that would be just ruling with an iron fist. So there was an empress like Qixi.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, she was like super
Empress
evil.
Dowager.
Yeah, she was super evil and manipulative and like spent all this money and stuff. But she's basically pretty similar to most Chinese women, in my opinion. But of course they have better personalities than her, very likely. But the point being,
traditionally, the idea is that in the West is that when women when they have these gender roles, that it's really it's suppressing women, and that women are being held down by their female gender role. and they're being dominated by men in the male gender.
I mean, if you count large amounts of men spending lots of money on you and taking you on holidays and buying you $1,500 bags, holding you down, then yeah, sure, they're really repressed. If I could be a Chinese woman, I would fucking take that deal right now.
Okay, well, all right. Well, maybe we should save the discussion for another time because I think Western women would argue that that
so many bags is too many to carry.
that women, that maybe they want to do more than just shop and wear expensive clothes, and they're not able to do those other things.
They solved that problem in China. So you just find a rich dude and you tell him that you want some sort of business, and he'll just set you up as the fake head of some sort of business. And then you can just live out your bizarre dreams of success via that, in between the shopping and the eating expensive food.
Okay. All right, well, let's move on to the next one, which is that Chinese women are excited about Western culture. Do you mean that they like eating Western food, or does this fit in with they like buying Chanel bags, or they want to watch Western movies? Is this a good thing?
So, I think Chinese culture is kind of a bit broken because of the whole Cultural Revolution, and they adapt some parts of Western culture to make up for that, especially due to materialism. So it's kind of fading a bit now, I think, but in some ways in China, things from the West are seen as better quality than things from China, and that's generally quite true, especially in regards to food or just clothing, and pretty much everything.
Actually, it's interesting you said that because I remember when I first started going to China, H&M and Zara and Gap were kind of just moving into the market, and I remember people saying that even though all those clothes were made in China, just like the Chinese brands, people often preferred to buy those because they had better quality control than the Chinese brands.
So the Chinese stuff is usually made just to break quickly. I mean, you can buy a pair of shoes for about $8, right? And they last you a very short amount of time. And
so it's like basically $1 a day?
Almost. Exactly $1 a day. And they literally will last about a week. But yeah, so that's the mentality. The stuff from the West is more trustworthy. And just examples of that would be the baby powder thing.
The baby powder, yeah.
So
the milk powder.
Every time I go back to Australia, I get all these requests of people saying, "Oh, can you buy me milk powder? Can you bring this health food back? Can you bring that back?" Because they understand that pretty much everything in China is like fake, poisonous, and broken. So.
Right. So you're saying that they're excited about Western culture mainly because in China the things that are available to them are of low quality. Is that right?
Well, I was more saying that there's this general sense that Western stuff is better quality. So then when you look at luxury goods, I mean, no one gives a shit about any luxury goods from China if they even exist, right? Mm-hmm. So you might have some hardcore communists who have some like antiques from whenever that maybe would fetch high prices, but in general, the really Western culture sort of luxury good stuff is all French, Italian, and stuff made in the West. So all the stuff that people want to spend big money on is not Chinese. And that translates again into TV shows or movies. If you ever watch a Chinese-produced movie or a Chinese-produced TV show, and you look at a Western one, the Western ones are still much, much better quality.
Mm. Okay, and what about, as a Western guy, does that translate into them being more excited about you? Do they think that Western guys are higher quality than Chinese guys?
So there's lots of positive and negative stereotypes about Western guys. Depends on the situation and who you're going for. It's too general. In general, I'd say it's much better to be a Western guy in China than a Chinese guy in China. You have an easier ride of things, and most Chinese people are happy to talk to you even if they're not interested in banging you, just because it's exciting. They have a new experience. They get some sort of social proof via talking to a foreigner. So yeah, people are pretty excited about foreign people still, even in big cities.
Okay. You say that Chinese girls are open-minded about sex, which, is definitely something that people do not say about Korean girls, for example. So can you, when you say open-minded about sex, what exactly do you mean?
So I mean, China has this layer of deception that just exists across everything, and that's how the whole society functions. And in regards to sex, I mean, everybody's going to pretend that they don't like that and they wouldn't do that, but then they actually like and do a lot of crazy shit. So, yeah, in my opinion, Chinese people are really curious about trying all of this different crazy stuff about sex, but they're not going to say that to other people or talk about it. So, for example, many Chinese girls would tell you, and guys will tell you, Chinese girls are very traditional. Chinese girls don't like to do these crazy things. Chinese girls think going to the club is dangerous, and that's true for a certain group of Chinese girls who are usually ugly and wear glasses. But you can very easily go to a sex market and there is like a whole complex just full of sex toys, full of like whips and dildos and things to electrocute your nipples and whatever you can think of, they've fucking got it.
Right, okay.
So I mean, talking about being open-minded about sex, I mean that Chinese people are willing to try lots of new things because they are only really pretending that anything they try is bad, whereas they're actually very curious about it.
I see. Yeah, I mean, I think that's quite different, certainly different from Koreans, where in general Koreans really there's quite strong pushback. And I've heard similar things, from some of the guys that we have up in Beijing. They seem to find some pretty wild girls who are quite experimental and open to, maybe trying threesomes or being tied up or really just up for pretty much anything. Yeah, in a way where, that's much harder to find in Korea. I mean, I don't think anyone's really found a girl who was, there have been a couple guys who have managed to get random threesomes, but really random, not like girls they're dating who are like open to really, trying really wild things.
So in general, I think Chinese girls, if you present a strong enough a strong enough level of authority, then they quite happily go with it. So basically, Chinese people are like robots and need to be told what to do. And
I think we could say that about most people.
Yeah, okay, well, most people. But in regards to Chinese people being robots, my point isn't that they actually are. It's just that if you have a girl and she is officially your girlfriend, she's going to be very, very accommodating to do the things you want to make you happy. Mm-hmm. And if you are relatively dominant, then that makes most of the girls feel a lot more comfortable about trying all this different stuff.
Okay. So,
yeah, I haven't met any Chinese girls that don't enjoy being dominated just in general.
Well, this runs right into your next point, which is that they are eager to please.
Yeah.
Which, obviously, once again, a lot of Western feminists would really say that this is a
terrible thing.
Yeah, a terrible thing.
Trying to make someone you like happy is just gross. And
yeah, that seems to be their general position on it. It's like we should both strive to make each other equally miserable. I think it's more than a Western perspective. So can you tell me a little bit more about this and in what ways? I mean, are they really paying attention to what you personally want, or are they following some set script of what they think is supposed to make you happy?
I think it's about half-half. Mm-hmm. So it depends on how stupid the girl is, really. I mean, I had a girl who would always pay attention to the things I liked or didn't like and then adjust how she would treat me or whatever, right? And then you do have some girls who will just follow the script because they have a lack of social experience and don't really understand how to treat people as people. They just treat them as like what is expected socially in general. Mm-hmm. So if you have a Chinese girl and you want her to do stuff for you, or even if you don't ask her, in general they'll be very, very helpful, because the Chinese, once they dedicate themselves to their partner, they try and hold on to that person as strongly as they can. And some of them, the more crazy ones, do this by trying to make your life hell and break you down emotionally, I guess. But in general, the good ones will make it a good experience for you, and they will be kind of jealous and try and get revenge if you do the wrong thing. Revenge, I think, is a really big part of Chinese culture in general.
Okay, well, I think that's for another discussion.
The point being, if you treat your girl well, then in general, I think Chinese girls will be quite loyal and will go the extra 10% to try and make you happy.
Yeah. So when does that include sort of not giving you a hard time about things? You know, like lots of nagging and complaining and that sort of thing, telling you that they don't think you treat them well enough. Is that common? Because I mean that's very common with Korean girls. You know, I mean, Vision, for example, always has girls saying, "Oh, you know, my ex-boyfriend used to text me like, 20 times a day, and you only text me 5." You know, they'd like make those sorts of complaints. Or or I was dating a girl who complained that, we only went to Southeast Asia, we didn't go to Hawaii. This is a Japanese, but she's upset because her friends, were saying, I guess Hawaii is what's cool, and going to, Thailand and Bali, that's not as cool. Since that common in China.
So not in my experience, but in the experience of my friends, sure. So I mean, we have a mutual Australian friend. He had a girl who things between him and the girl were going really, really well for probably about a year, and then she got a new job, and her workmates, one in particular was like proposed to her boyfriend, and her boyfriend bought her a really expensive ring and took her on holiday to some place, and then that started this girl thinking, oh, why doesn't my boyfriend treat me this way, and feeling all bad. And then eventually they broke up, right? And she's probably sad and lonely now. But in general, I think...
We can only hope.
In general, I think the Chinese do nag a lot, but this could just be my personal experience.
I met a couple of guys who've been living in Shenzhen for about 10 years now. And they were saying that in southern China, in Guangdong, they were saying that the way that Chinese people connect is by being really negative. So he was saying that when they go to, in the Guangdong people, when they go to dinner, they'll all complain about the food. Even if, mom cooks the food, it's never good. Like the chicken is too dry, or it's not dry enough, or something, or it's too, So that he was saying that everyone sits around the table, and that's like a way of bonding. Did you experience this at all, or have you seen this?
No.
Okay, all right.
That's really, really strange.
Okay, yeah, maybe that's just,
So in that Shanghai, the way they connect would just be lying to each other. So,
what do you...
Well, if, let's say, your skin doesn't look really good, right? But you would lie to the person you're with and you'd say, oh, your skin looks really nice, it looks different from last time, or maybe you've lost weight. And everybody knows it's blatant lies, but they say these things to each other to give each other face, which makes each other feel more relaxed about communicating and opening up, I guess.
Okay. So, I mean, it's not really that much different from, when you greet someone in the West, you say, oh, how are you doing? They say, oh, I'm fine, even, if they're not really. They would kind of, unless it was like something really severe, they wouldn't go, well.
But that's not really connecting. I mean, if you say, hey, man, how you doing? You go, oh, I'm fine. That's like rejecting rapport rather than opening up, right? I'm saying with the Chinese, if I saw you, I'm like, hey man, oh, you look really good. Did you lose weight? That's me giving you a chance to then talk about your recent experiences, or to say, oh, no, I haven't. And you go, oh, you really look like it. I give you a bit of face. So that gives you a chance to reciprocate.
I see. Okay. All right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So
the closest thing I found to what you mentioned about Guangdong was Chinese New Year with a Chinese family, where they'll sit around and do something a little bit similar to the thing in Seinfeld. Do you know Festivus?
Oh, I've heard of it, but I'm not much of a Seinfeld watcher.
So in Seinfeld they have a replacement festival for Christmas. It's called Festivus, and you all put presents around the pole.
Is that because Jerry Seinfeld is Jewish?
There's no presents. No presents. There's a big aluminum pole, and the airing of grievances, and the pizza strength.
Okay, so we've had a voice from the darkness cut in, and we'll just disregard that and move forward. So the airing of grievances is the part I want to mention. You sit around and you tell people how they've disappointed you throughout the year, right? Now the Chinese have an equivalent of the airing of grievances, where you basically sit around the dinner table after you've had food at Chinese New Year and tell each other how you've disappointed each other throughout the year.
Really?
Yeah.
That doesn't sound like very much fun.
It's not. I was like, what the fuck is going on?
So you were there with your girl.
Yeah.
So she just, in front of her parents, was just telling them like everything that she didn't like about you or that you disappointed about?
No. So it mainly only works downhill. For example, the parents, the higher social people, can criticize the people below them.
Oh, right.
People above them. You basically...
So parents can complain about their kids, but kids can't say things about their parents.
Kids can't say shit.
But don't the parents just do that all the time, all year long?
Yeah, but this is like a specific time of where you're supposed to take feedback, I guess, from your parents to improve.
If we had that tradition, I would go home even less. Okay, so you know, in one part of the article, you mentioned that that Chinese girls can't cook, especially in Shanghai. But on the other hand, you say that most girls from big cities, especially Shanghai. Oh, you say they aren't. Oh, yeah, they don't know how to. Right.
Because they don't have time, because the dude's always taking them out for dinner.
Okay,
It's true.
but you also say that Chinese women cook great Chinese food.
Yeah. So I one time had this girl from Wenzhou, and that's a small place with lots of money. I think somewhere in the south of China. And she one morning went out and bought like shaved lamb and all of these different vegetables and stuff, and made breakfast for me, and it was like restaurant grade food. And I've had a lot of experiences where Chinese girls have cooked really, really good Chinese food. So what you get in restaurants and what they make is actually quite different. Where else would you like me to go with them and being able to cook?
Oh, I was just trying to figure out the discrepancy between what you said about most Chinese girls in big cities not being able to cook.
So girls in big cities can't cook, usually in Shanghai, because the man cooks in Shanghai.
Right.
Basically, the men have been completely feminized.
So I'm a little bit confused because in general in Asia, you know, there's the gender role where the guy's supposed to go and work, and he like basically spends his entire life at the office being miserable, except for occasionally when he gets to go out drinking and whoring with his workmates.
That's the north of China.
Okay, so in South China, the women are doing all the work?
So in the south of China, the man has to go and do the sad time in the office and some whoring and drinking, and he has to come home and cook, and I guess usually clean as well. So
what does the woman do?
Go to restaurants and eat, go to KTV, take selfies.
So married Chinese women in the South, they're not supposed to take care of the household.
To some extent they will, but in general, all the girls in the South know that Shanghaiese guys will like cook and clean and do all this sort of stuff.
Not the Shanghaiese guys that you've worked with.
So, the guys I work with are, okay, Harry and Dali, for example, they're a little bit strange. Dali will cook. He'll be very Shanghaiese in some ways, but he doesn't clean very much. We have another guy living with us called Charlie, and Charlie cleans everything, like
in your house?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. We just let him do it, because, yeah.
Right, why stop a good thing?
He's pretty much like one of those worker ants.
Interesting. Okay, well, is there anything else that you want to say about Chinese girls that you really like about them? What about like in terms of, you know, socializing with them, or, you know?
I think one of the better things about Chinese girls is that they don't, I think a lot of them don't have a great relationship with their parents.
This is a good thing?
Yeah, and that makes it easier for, I guess, you to build a life with them. So if you're interested in dating a Chinese girl and you want her to move back to your country, there is very rarely going to be any Chinese girls who'll be like, no, fuck that, I want to stay in China. They're pretty much all like, yes, let's get out of here.
Right.
And that's kind of, I think, a lot easier than it would be with Koreans or Japanese people.
Oh, definitely. Japanese people really don't want to live overseas unless they're really strange. And then they have a lot of trouble sort of fitting in and socializing and getting along, because everything in Japan is so well organized. They just show up and things don't work. Like, you know, in Japan, if something is supposed to work a certain way, then it just does.
No, we've been over that.
And so, so when they go to a place and that's not the case, it's very confusing for them.
I could understand that.
It's like I put my coin in the machine and no drink came out. Like, this is like that would never. I mean, I in all my years living in Japan, I only had the wrong drink come out of the machine once. Once. That's it. And I used to, use the machine. It's almost a daily thing that you get a drink from the machine in Japan.
So China is like the opposite of this, where if you get the drink out of the machine, you just count yourself as lucky. Like any drink, not just. No, really, because I couldn't count the amount of times I put money into machines and then just fucking nothing comes out. Everything is designed to be broken very quickly, and if things break, that's just how it is. It's just
right. Okay, so that's and I would also say for Koreans, they tend to be much more they want to be near their mom and their dad. I mean, even living in a different city, I think is kind of a big deal. So that's pretty good. I mean, I think to know that, and I also think that Chinese in general are sort of more adaptable in terms of being able to live in different environments and things, and a little bit more independent.
What do you mean by independent?
I mean that, if you drop them in sort of a random city, they'll be able to figure things out.
That's really depends on who and all this sort of stuff.
So it varies widely, you'd say?
So if you've got Caitlin and my current girlfriend, right, and you put her in any random city in the West, she would be fine because she could talk to people in English and ask questions and figure stuff out.
Mm-hmm.
But if she had no money, she'd be fucked. Like she would just have no idea, I don't think, of how to get money other than to call her family. You
don't think she'd be able to get a job?
She probably could, but she's not, I guess, the typical example of Chinese person. So
right.
She's lived in Singapore for like 5 years. If you've got a typical Chinese person like one of the dancers I used to date, then you chucked her in any foreign city, her brain would just melt because it would because it's just so different. She just wouldn't understand how things work. So I don't think Chinese people are particularly independent, but there's a big difference between Chinese people who've traveled overseas and who haven't, except the ones who go tour groups to Thailand. They're pretty much exactly the same.
Okay, all right. So you think is it a class thing?
Not really. China's really weird like that. So, for example, I've got this one student right now who I would say is about 80% farmer.
Okay.
And he's a fat guy, he does IT, but he makes good money. He's bought a car, and he's got a decent amount of money. Now, he's probably one of the most polite and respectful people I think I've ever met in China. Without exaggeration, he really is. And whereas I meet other guys another one who's a lawyer who makes more money than the guy I just mentioned, who's much higher class. He comes from a quite wealthy Shanghaiese family, and he's basically just not rude, but just totally doesn't understand how to treat people in a normal interaction. He doesn't understand what
he lacks, like social intelligence.
Yeah, his social IQ is quite low.
Okay, great. Well, I don't think I have any other questions about what makes Chinese girls really, really great. So thanks a lot, King, and it's good to have you here in Taiwan.
I'm happy to be here in Taiwan.
All right.
Thanks for listening, and have fun.
Bye-bye.